You know how some people walk into a room like they own it? Well, Meghan Markle just tried that in Paris, and the room collectively decided she doesn't. This was supposed to be her big moment, the comeback, the rebirth, the look at me now entrance that reminded everyone why she once ruled the headlines. She arrived like a woman stepping into her second coronation, confident, camera ready, every detail rehearsed down to the tilt of her chin. But instead of applause, what she got was silence. Not the kind of silence that follows admiration, the kind that follows embarrassment. Paris didn't cheer. Paris didn't even whisper. It just looked past her. The Duchess, the actress, the woman who once had the world hanging on every word, suddenly invisible. And not because people didn't recognize her, but because they chose not to. They say fame doesn't end with booze, it ends with quiet indifference. And on that night, in a room full of power players and icons, Meghan Markle found out exactly what that feels like. Because this wasn't just a random snub, it was personal, it was public, and it sent shockwaves through the same world that once fought to sit next to her. From Paris runways to Los Angeles dinner tables, from high fashion to royal fallout, Meghan's grip on influence is slipping. And now, insiders are saying the silence she faced that night wasn't an accident. It was a message that maybe, just maybe, the world's finally moving on without her. Paris, Balenciaga, flashbulbs, silk, perfume in the air. It was everything Meghan had been waiting for. The chance to step back into the world she believes she still belongs to. She arrived looking every inch the Duchess she once was. Perfect posture, sleek black outfit, smile rehearsed like a movie trailer. You could almost feel her confidence from the cameras. That energy of, I'm back, I never left. But the thing about Paris, it remembers. And that night, it remembered every headline, every interview, every public accusation she's made since leaving the palace. While Meghan thought she was walking into admiration, the room had already made its judgment. You could see it in the eyes of the crowd. Polite, detached, professional. The kind of looks people give when they've already decided the conversation is over before it even begins. Every seat was filled with people who didn't need to be seen. Anne Hathaway chatting quietly across the row. Baz Luhrmann deep in conversation. Dame Kristin Scott Thomas, elegance carved from marble. These are people who've earned silence. They don't chase it. And into that silence walked Meghan Markle, the woman who built her entire identity around being seen. When she reached her seat beside Dame Kristin, cameras caught that moment. The slight turn of the head, the subtle lift of an eyebrow, the polite half smile that never reached the eyes. Kristin didn't even pause her conversation. She just shifted slightly in her chair, enough to face the person beside her. And in that tiny motion, Meghan disappeared. That's how rejection works in rooms like that. It's not loud, it's graceful. It's quiet power saying, you don't belong here anymore. Witnesses later said it felt like the air changed. Sharp, heavy, awkward. You could see Meghan realize what had just happened. Her smile froze for half a second. She adjusted her dress, tried to keep composure. But the thing about cameras, they always catch the truth hiding behind the smile. That's the moment everyone started whispering. Not about what she was wearing, but about what she wasn't. Influence, connection, respect. Because Paris doesn't snub by mistake. It snubs to remind you that status isn't bought, it's borrowed. And hers had expired. Meghan's presence should have been a headline. Instead, it became a cautionary tale. People weren't saying that, did you see Meghan Markle? They were saying, did you see how no one saw her? And that's when the silence became louder than applause. When you've spent years defining yourself through attention, there's nothing more painful than realizing the world's attention has moved on. That night at Balenciaga, Meghan wasn't the Duchess, the actress, or the icon. She was just another guest, another face in a room that decided to look the other way. The thing about silence, especially in Paris, is that it lingers. It follows you like perfume, only heavier. As Meghan sat there under the bright lights of the Balenciaga show, she could feel it, that invisible wall between her and everyone else. It wasn't open hostility. It was worse than that. It was indifference. You could see her trying to read the room, adjusting her hair, crossing her legs, forcing that practiced half smile. The same smile that used to light up red carpets now looked uncertain, desperate even. The cameras that once chased her were suddenly taking their time. They weren't in a hurry anymore. The crowd wasn't cruel, they were polite, too polite, and that's how Paris delivers its harshest lessons. With elegance. The small talk flowed all around her, but never toward her. Laughter erupted in clusters, but it never reached her seat. Witnesses say she looked around as if searching for a familiar face, a wave, a nod, some acknowledgement that she still mattered in a room that once would have revolved around her presence. But nothing came. Anne Hathaway was busy speaking to an executive from St. Laurent. Kristin Scott Thomas didn't even glance in her direction again. Even the photographers, the ones who used to sprint just to catch a shot of her, seemed distracted, focused on younger faces, newer names. It was a quiet dethroning, the kind that doesn't need words because the message is written in every turned back, every sideways glance, every click of a camera that isn't pointed at you. In that silence, Meghan must have realized something no one in her circle would dare tell her out loud. Paris had made its decision, and it wasn't just about that night. It was about everything. The interviews, the speeches, the documentaries, the constant need to control the narrative. Paris doesn't reward that kind of noise. It rewards mystery. It rewards restraint. And Meghan, the woman who's built her image on openness, vulnerability, confession, suddenly found herself in a city that saw through it all. By the end of the night, that elegant indifference had spread. Stylists whispered. Editors exchanged looks. The after-party invitations that used to come naturally, nowhere to be found. Because in Paris, exclusion doesn't happen loudly. They don't shut you out. They simply stop letting you in. And by the time Meghan's car pulled away from the venue, the whispers had already begun to circle. Not angry whispers, not scandal, just quiet amusement. She thought it was her night. She doesn't realize she's old news. She tried to come back, but Paris doesn't do reboots. It's cruel, but in that world, cruelty wears couture. It smiles, it claps politely. It doesn't need to raise its voice to make its point, and the point that night was clear. The Duchess who once commanded global attention had become just another guest, tolerated, not celebrated. That silence didn't just humiliate her, it exposed her. Because when your power comes from being seen, being ignored is the loudest rejection there is. Hit that sub if you're locked in for the truth, because what happens next in LA will make Paris look polite. After Paris, Meghan needed a reset. She went home, to California, the land of curated lighting and carefully chosen angles. A few weeks later, insiders say she planned the perfect re-entry, a private vegan dinner hosted by designer Kelly Wearstler in Beverly Hills. Just a handful of names, all power, all image. This was supposed to be Meghan's comeback dinner, a quiet show that she still had Hollywood in her palm. And for a moment, it looked like it might work, until Emma Grady walked in. If you don't know the name, you should. CEO of Good American, partner in Skims, billionaire brain, the kind of woman who doesn't post quotes about power, she just has it. The second Emma entered, the energy in the room shifted. People leaned in, conversations paused, everyone turned toward her, including Meghan. And just like that, the hierarchy reset itself. Meghan tried. Of course she did. She started steering the conversation, talking about her foundation, her new wine brand, her mission for purpose-driven luxury. You know, the same pitch she's been giving since the Spotify fallout. But Emma wasn't playing along. She wasn't rude. She just didn't orbit Meghan. Halfway through dinner, Emma interrupted, politely, naturally, like someone used to leading a room without needing to announce it. The tone changed. The laughter followed her, not Meghan. By dessert, it was clear. Meghan Markle, the Duchess who once sat across Oprah, had just been outshined by a quiet, self-made billionaire who didn't even mean to do it. And the final blow came weeks later. Emma Grady, that same woman from the dinner, was announced as a U.S. ambassador for the King's Foundation. Yes, the same royal institution Meghan had spent years criticizing. The same monarchy she called racist, outdated, and toxic. Now one of her friends was shaking hands with the crown. Sources close to Meghan say she was shocked by the news. Publicly, her team put out polite congratulations. Privately, they were fuming, because Meghan understands one thing better than anyone else: optics. And these optics were brutal. The monarchy she rejected was now elevating one of her peers. The same Hollywood women Meghan once counted as allies were aligning themselves with Buckingham Palace. The message was crystal clear. You can leave the crown, but the crown can replace you. While Emma was praised in British headlines for modernizing the monarchy, Meghan was trending for being ignored in Paris. The contrast was deadly. Even her old PR contacts started to distance themselves, quietly saying she'd become too unpredictable, too polarizing. And in Hollywood, that's worse than scandal. It means you're bad for business. The move King Charles is planning might finally end Meghan's royal chapter for good. And then there's Harry, the man who once said he'd follow her anywhere, even out of the monarchy. Sources say Harry's been struggling privately with what all of this has turned into. Once the wild royal rebel, now a man trapped in the same machine he thought he escaped, except this one runs on cameras, not crowns. He watches the clips of Paris, the memes, the comparisons, the whispers, and insiders claim the look on his face isn't anger, it's relief. For the first time, he's not the target. While Meghan fights for headlines, Harry's reportedly spending his days at home, scrolling, working out, and quietly obsessing over his appearance. Hair loss, aging, image. The man who defied royal expectations now measures his worth through Hollywood's mirror. Friends say the spark between them has faded into meetings and management. What started as a partnership built on love and rebellion now runs like a business. All calendar, no chemistry. Meanwhile, across the ocean, the palace is watching, and not with sympathy. For years, they stayed silent through every interview and accusation. But now, insiders say patience is running out. King Charles, after years of restraint, is reportedly considering something unprecedented: a full legal move through Parliament to strip titles permanently. It started with Andrew. But word is Prince William has been quietly pushing for a complete cleanup before his reign begins. And that includes Harry and Meghan. If this goes through, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex will no longer exist. No titles, no royal status, no connection to the crown. Just two California residents. Public figures without a palace. And that, according to insiders, terrifies Meghan more than anything. Because for all her branding and independence, her entire public value still ties back to one thing: that title. Without it, she's not the Duchess. She's just Meghan Markle, former actress, former royal, current outsider. From Paris runways to Beverly Hills dinners, from royal palaces to Montecito mansions, Meghan's story has turned into a slow-motion undoing. Paris ignored her. Hollywood outshined her. The monarchy replaced her. And now, even Harry seems to be retreating from the circus. The woman who built her identity around visibility now finds herself trapped in the cruelest kind of spotlight, one that shows everything but admiration. Because fame doesn't end with hate, it ends with indifference, and that's what Meghan is facing now. Polite smiles, empty claps, rooms that don't turn when she enters. The same grace she tried to imitate, the poise, the restraint, the quiet power, is now the very thing exposing her. Dame Kristin's cold shoulder wasn't just a snub, it was a warning. Emma Greedy's effortless dominance wasn't an insult, it was proof. The world Meghan built her empire on has moved on, and it's not looking back. So maybe the real question isn't what's next for Meghan Markle, maybe it's what's left. Because when the lights dim, when the crowns stop glittering, when the rooms stop waiting for your arrival, who are you then? A duchess without a kingdom, a star without a spotlight, a woman who once rewrote her story, now being quietly erased from the pages she thought she owned. Paris didn't hate her. Hollywood didn't betray her. They simply stopped seeing her. And that, in the end, is the most devastating twist of all. Not the fall from grace, but the silence that follows it.